To find the origin of Frendo the Clown, the most terrifying face of clown in a cornfield, we have to look at the dark history of Kettle Springs, Missouri. A once thriving town known for the Baypen Corn Syrup Factory, a massive building that towered over the town, with Frendo, their colorful clown mascot, painted right on the side. Top hat, big smile, bright colors, Frendo was meant to represent prosperity, a symbol of hard work, family, and small town pride. But that all changed when the Baypen factory went up in flames. The town's economy collapsed overnight. With no steady income and no hope, the older generation of Kettle Springs began to resent the youth, blaming them for the fire that destroyed the factory. They believed the kids had become careless, reckless, and disrespectful of tradition. Soon, Frendo's cheerful face was no longer just a harmless mascot. It became a mask, a disguise for something far more sinister. To learn the secrets of Frendo the Clown, what he truly represents, and who's really hiding behind the mask, keep watching to uncover the full story. Victoria Hill was in 8th grade when she tagged along with her older brother Cole to the reservoir. Cole and his friends, Janet, Matt, Ronnie, Tucker, and Ginger, ran a small YouTube channel where they filmed pranks and stunts for fun. That day, they were supposed to shoot some harmless footage, cannonballs, belly flops, and maybe a few sketchy jumps for the camera. It was meant to be just the 7 of them, but someone in the group had open invited half the high school, and the reservoir quickly turned into a party. While most of the underclassmen cracked beers on the shore, Cole and his crew focused on filming. At one point, Janet was recording Cole, hyping up the camera as usual, when she noticed something out of the corner of her eye. Victoria had made her way to the edge of the reservoir. The group shifted their attention to Cole's little sister, cheering her on, egging her to jump. So she did. Victoria Hill died from that jump. And this happened 1 year before the main events of our story. It is something you're going to need to remember because by the time we get to the end, this moment will matter more than you think. One year after Victoria Hill's death, our story begins. Quinn Maybrook and her father Glenn have just moved to Kettle Springs, Missouri. The reason? Quinn's mother, Savannah Maybrook, had died of a drug overdose back in Philadelphia. It was sudden, it was devastating, and neither of them could handle staying in the same city where every street corner, every familiar face, and every memory reminded them of her. So they packed up and left. Quinn understood it was the right decision. At least for her dad. She knew that if they stayed, Glenn Maybrook might have had a complete breakdown. But Quinn wasn't exactly thrilled about moving to Kettle Springs either. A small, nowhere town with nothing to do, it wasn't her idea of a fresh start. Her dad found the town because the local doctor had retired, leaving an opening he thought he could fill. When they arrived at their new house, it was run down and barely livable. Not exactly the warm welcome Quinn needed to feel settled. But the real takeaway from their arrival isn't the house, it's the location. Their new home sits near the Baypen Corn Syrup Factory, the lifeblood of Kettle Springs, until it burned down. When Quinn went upstairs to check out her room, she noticed something strange through her window. A cornfield stretched out behind the house, and beyond it stood the remains of the old factory. Painted across the side of the building was a massive clown. Bright colors, top hat, big smile. At first, Quinn didn't think much of it. Just another piece of weird, small town history, she figured. What she didn't know was that this clown Frendo would soon become the nightmare of her life and almost every teenager in Kettle Springs. On Quinn Maybrook's first day in the quiet rural town of Kettle Springs, Missouri, she crossed paths with her neighbor Rustin Vance, though most people just call him Rust. They're both walking to school when Quinn notices the burned out husk of the Baypen Corn Syrup Factory. Curious, she asks Russ if that's where the town used to make clown costumes. He laughs. No, not clowns, corn syrup. The clown she saw, Frendo, with the painted on smile and top hat, was just the mascot. And while the fire was recent, the factory had been shut down even before that. At school, Quinn is thrown straight into the chaos. Her locker neighbor Ginger wastes no time delivering the local gossip. Cole Hill, a teenage live streamer and the son of the factory's former owner, is accused of burning down his entire family's factory, and things only go downhill from there. Quinn ends up on Mr. Vern's bad side, a teacher who clearly despises the students he teaches. Disrespectful, unruly, rebellious, he sees them all as the rot infecting Kettle Springs. When a few students disrupt his class, Quinn gets lumped in with them. The punishment? They're all banned from attending the Founders Day celebration, a ban that none of them plan to follow. Founders Day is a big deal in Kettle Springs, not just because of tradition, but because this year, someone very important might show up. Arthur Hill, Cole's father. He's the only man who could financially revive the town if he's willing to reinvest and reopen Baypen. But there's tension. At the town meeting before the event, Sheriff Dune expresses doubt. He claims Arthur has no interest in Kettle Springs anymore because of what the town has taken from him. His daughter, Victoria, is dead. His factory burned, and he sees no reason to fund a town that's being overrun by, as put in Sheriff Dune's words, don't give a rat's ass about our history or heritage. In the book by Adam Cesare, on page 87, it says, "This new generation," Dune went on, shaking his head and sucking his teeth, "they need to be brought in line." It seems as if everyone in the council shares the same sentiments about the younger generation. It was obvious that they didn't want the youth ruining this very important day for the town, a day that could spark the interest of Arthur Hill himself. The parade is supposed to be a wholesome town tradition, but things take a violent turn. The prank pulled by Cole's friends Tucker, Ronnie, Janet, and Matt goes horribly wrong, causing a 3-car pileup. Sheriff Dune, already suspicious of Cole due to the factory fire, immediately places the blame. This sparks an emergency town meeting that feels less like civic duty and more like a cult sermon. Dune claims the explosives from the parade were planted by a minor and calls for citizens to be deputized, uniting adults into a militia-style force to restore order. Mayor Harlan Jafers resists at first, but when he tries to join the deputized group, Dune humiliates him, saying, "Mayors can't be deputized." Later that night, Harlan walks to his car, he drops his keys, and in the puddle next to them, he sees a reflection, Frendo. When he turns around, he's stabbed in the neck with an ice pick. This is Frendo's official first kill in the story. Meanwhile, Tucker is grounded. Bored and frustrated, he checks his home security cameras. That's when he sees it. Frendo is standing on his front porch. Tucker thinks it's a prank at first. He opens the door, no one's there. So he checks the back, but there's no one there either. When he goes inside, he texts his friends, "Nice try, assholes." But when he turns around, Frendo is in the house, just standing, tilting his head, silent. Tucker tells the clown to knock it off, but he doesn't respond. Then he reveals that he's holding a knife. Tucker tries to knock it out of his hand thinking it was fake, but then gets cut. And this is when he realizes it was not a prank. Frendo lunges at him and stabs him in the stomach. Tucker fights back in a moment of desperation, trying to get his phone to dial 911. He's able to get a couple good hits and damage the clown for a little bit, allowing him to get his phone, but his hands were all bloodied, making it hard to dial the phone. Then all of a sudden, his head gets pulled back and a knife slits his throat. During the party at Tillerson's barn, Quinn, Cole, Janet, Matt, and Ronnie gather with dozens of other teenagers to have some fun. Quinn sees Russ there, surprised he showed up. He used to be close with Cole until football made Cole too popular. Cole teases Russ about his hunting hobby, but soon, Russ' skills will become the only reason anyone survives. That night, as the music plays and the cornfield sways, a masked figure arrives wearing Frendo's face. But even worse, he's armed with a crossbow, and he doesn't hesitate. Bolts fly into the crowd, screams erupt. The party disintegrates into chaos as teens scatter through the cornfields and into the barn. Janet, unfortunately, is shot in the shoulder. Cole, Matt, and Ronnie take cover in the silo, while Quinn and Janet flee blindly into the cornfield. But they run into Rust, who's retrieved his weapons. They quickly pull the arrow out of Janet's shoulder and make a tourniquet to stop the bleeding. As she's passing out, they give her 2 things. 1, a phone to try to call 911, and a gun that isn't actually loaded because she isn't fully there. Rust gave it to her just to make her feel a little bit more confident. Rust arms himself with his rifle and gives Janet a shotgun, and they prepare to fight back. Back at the massacre, Frendo has set the barn on fire, trying to get the kids to run out so he can shoot them. When Quinn and Rust make it back, Quinn is actually able to shoot the killer, and when she unmasks him, the first reveal: Mr. Vern, the same teacher who treated teenagers like parasites in his classroom. But the chaos isn't over just yet, because Mr. Vern is not the only Frendo killer. Janet, bleeding in the cornfield, hears voices. She thinks it's the cops coming to rescue them. However, as they get closer, she realizes it's more Frendos. Janet ran back to warn her friends that there's more than one killer. On page 227 it reads, "This isn't one person," Janet continued. "This is revenge. They're killing us because boom boom." The loud rev of motor drowned out Janet's words. Another clown emerged from the cornfield, this time not carrying a crossbow, but a large whirring circular saw chasing after Janet. Eventually the clown catches up to Janet and decapitates her. Rust is able to shoot him, but then they all realize that they're surrounded by even more clowns. So Rust and Quinn regroup with the others and take shelter in the silo. They realize that they're trapped. The Frendo killers now know where they are, and staying inside means eventual death. They're low on options, and worse, they're low on time. That's when Rust comes up with the plan. He decides to rig the silo with explosives, intending to blow it up. The explosion will kill the Frendos surrounding them, and more importantly, create enough chaos for the others to escape. In this moment, it feels very much like a moment of self-sacrifice. Rust tells the others to crawl through the grain bin and onto the conveyor belt out the back. They're all hesitant, especially Cole, who used to be close friends with Rust before they drifted apart. The explosion goes off and the others escape. But here's the twist. Rust doesn't die. Though the book makes it seem like he's going to sacrifice himself, he manages to survive the explosion. Barely, and returns later in the climax. Meanwhile, Glenn Maybrook, Quinn's father, has been kidnapped, forced to operate on a wounded woman named Trudy, while held captive by another man in a Frendo costume. The big clown ends up leaving Glenn Maybrook with the patient alone. Glenn Maybrook decides to pass her out with the pain in order to stabilize her and then find a way out. He hears a bunch of weird noises coming from above, making him think that maybe they're all leaving, and he tests his theory by asking questions to the overhead mic that had been talking to him earlier, and at one point he even insults them, but there was no response, which made him feel confident enough to take off the patient's clown suit, use it for himself as a disguise, grab a sharp medical tool as defense, and literally walk up out of there. The other teens make it out to the road, where they come across Sheriff Dune. Dune immediately accuses Cole of starting the whole trouble, and while he gets locked in the backseat of Dune's cop car, Cole notices dark spots on the sheriff's chest. He realizes that Dune is wounded, not from defending the town, but from being part of the slaughter, and connects the dots that Dune is working with the Frendo killers. Ronnie and Matt are also in on the massacre plot as well. Cole screams at the top of his lungs as he's hitting the car window, telling Quinn that Dune is one of them, but the three collaborators incapacitate Quinn. Matt and Ronnie are tasked with killing Quinn. However, she's able to regain consciousness and escape, and in a long game of cat and mouse, she's able to kill Matt and Ronnie. Then, when Cole is trapped in the back of Dune's car, Dune reveals that this isn't about justice, it's about cleansing. Dune believes this entire generation is a blighted crop, useless, disrespectful, unworthy of Kettle Springs. And his plan? Eradicate them. Frame the survivors, restore order by force. But the most shocking twist of them all is that Cole's father, Arthur Hill, is helping orchestrate the massacre. Why, you may ask? Because he blames Cole. He blames Cole for the death of his daughter, he blames Cole for burning down the factory, and he sees his son's generation as the beginning of Kettle Springs' decline. And now he wants to finish what Dune started. The final confrontation takes place in the most symbolic location possible, the ruined Baypen Corn Syrup Factory, where Frendo was born. Arthur and Dune plan to stage his suicide, a final insult and a clean ending to their twisted plan. But Quinn shows up with a gun. She's had enough. She confronts Arthur. Gunfire erupts. In the chaos, Dune throws Cole from the hanging platform, but at the last second, Russ crashes in with his truck, saving Cole. Quinn kills Dune in the shootout and finds her father Glenn in the factory, who has escaped his cell. Cole and Russ share a long overdue moment of truth, a kiss. This was a very shocking moment for me in both the book and the movie because I didn't see it coming at all. It kind of just felt like a curveball and just out of place entirely, in my opinion. Not one of my favorite parts of the story. Arthur, however, does escape. 2 months later, Glenn Maybrook is now running to become mayor of Kettle Springs. Cole and Russ are now openly together, and in a final epilogue reveal, Arthur Hill is still alive, hiding in Cuba, plotting his return. And that, my friends, is the complete story of Clown in a Cornfield. Now, the story that I stayed true to was that of the book, because the movie is slightly different, and I do personally believe that the book is better, but that doesn't mean that the movie is entirely bad. I think it is a good adaptation, and it is a very fun watch, but overall the book is easily better. There's things like the opening is not as good in the movie as it is in the book. However, there are some things that I actually do like about the movie better. For example, the scene when Glenn Maybrook is doing the operation on the injured Frendo. He cleverly creates a scenario where he needs the other guy to help him and then uses the knife to stab him in the neck. To me, that shows a lot more of Glenn Maybrook as a clever individual that thinks on the spot quickly, versus in the book, he just talks to the monitor to see if they're still there, and apparently they're not, so he just walks out. That's not as interesting to me. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want me to go in depth in the second and third book, please comment down below that you want to see more Clown in a Cornfield. I'll be more than happy to cover those books as well. But give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you're not already, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.